All right, guys. So we've got a couple review questions that we're just going to go through nice and fast. So first one is, what were the percentages for each of the different energy systems? Depends on what we're doing. At rest, when you're hanging out, you're probably, anywhere from 50 to maybe as high as 90% beta oxidation, about 10, obviously, to about 50% aerobic glycolysis, and then just a very small amount, probably 1% or less, of ATP PCR and anaerobic glycolysis. Now, you're doing a max effort 10-yard sprint, you're going to be effectively about, 70, 80% ATP PCR, 20 to close to 30% anaerobic glycolysis, and the rest is going to be the aerobic glycolysis and beta oxidation. So it's all about the emphasis. Go ahead and check out those metabolism slides, and hopefully that gives you more. Now, remember, the Randle cycle is going to be a situation where we have a bunch of negative feedback loops. So the body is going to preferentially use fat as fuel when we're at lower intensity for energy production in the cell, but we're going to shift over to carbs and quit trying to break down fat whenever we're getting into higher intensities. And that's a good thing. Reesterification is where we're just going to effectively just recycle those individual fatty acids, maybe increase their length, and then get them back into triglyceride form for restorage. The lactate shuttle is going to be, after we produce that lactate, we're going to shuttle it out of the cell via monocarboxylate transporters, the number 1 and number 4. Now, once they go and they leave the cell, they can then go through the monocarboxylate transporters on our adjacent slow twitch fibers somewhere else in the body, our heart, our brain, etc. And there it's going to be able to be utilized as fuel or go to liver and undergo gluconeogenesis. Mtor is the pathway that's very important for cellular signaling to increase muscle size. And it's a growth pathway inside the body. So it's going to be started through a number of different ways, through the insulin receptor substrate, through leucine directly on itself, and through a couple other potential mediators. And from there, it's going to cause the phosphorylation of 4-EBP1 and P70F6K, which in turn is going to initiate RBS6, which is going to help us with literally producing more muscle. Well, more essentially proteins that will then turn into more sarcomeres and more muscle. So when heart rate increases, which ventricle of the heart is impacted the most? They're both going to obviously have to pump more blood. The key is your left ventricle has to pump against a greater pressure in a healthy heart, because it has to pump the blood all throughout the body, as opposed to the right ventricle, which just has to pump it through the lungs. And as far as whenever we're talking about the blood flow, it's going to come back into our right ventricle, go into our right atria, go into then our right ventricle through our tricuspid valve. From there, it's going to go up and be ejected into the pulmonary arteries through the pulmonary valve. Then it's going to come back from the lungs into the left atrium through what's going to be our bicuspid or mitral valve. And then from there, it's going to be pumped from that left ventricle through our aortic valve into our aorta, and then throughout the rest of the body. You are going to be given 90 minutes on the exam for the individual and for the group. You need to make sure you take the individual exam before 7 p.m. on Monday, November 30th. And it will be set up so you're going to get the entire test at once. It's going to randomize the question order. And so that way you're going to be able to go back and forth and hopefully get all the answers you're looking for. So thank you guys for the review questions. I'm going to keep putting these up as you guys come up with them. Stay safe out there. Have a great day. Bye-bye.